Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Samantha, or Sam, and I do fashion and lifestyle videos here on YouTube. For today's video, I will be doing a relationship Q&A. Now, honestly, this is a video that I've kind of been avoiding because even right now, I'm nervous, just because I feel like these are such personal opinions and everyone approaches relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic relationships, so differently. But I finally perked up the courage to answer these questions, and we're gonna do it. I'm gonna sit down and have all the questions on here. I pretty much picked the most asked questions and the ones that kind of kept appearing because there were so many wonderful questions, and if I didn't get to your question, then I hope in a future Q&A that I will be able to get to it. But anyways, before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, as I would love to have you join the family as well. I will leave my Instagram somewhere up here, as I would love it if you guys could follow me there as well. But anyways, let's get into this relationship Q&A. There was tons and tons of questions, but one question that was super common had to do with partners posting each other on social media. So this particular question asks, is it a red flag if my boyfriend won't post me on Instagram after 10 months plus moving in together? So I think my answer to this question is, first of all, asking yourself, why do you feel the need for your boyfriend to post you on social media? I think once you know the answer to this question, you'll be able to better move forward with, how you're going to deal with this situation, because I strongly believe that posting a significant other on social media means absolutely nothing. It is not a reflection on you, it's not a reflection on them, nor is it a reflection on your relationship. So I think once you sit down with yourself and you start asking yourself, okay, why do I want him to post me? Do I not feel loved enough? Do I feel this pressure to show off my significant other to my friends, your family? Perhaps is there some sort of internal insecurity? Did he post his previous girlfriend and not you? I think you need to really sit down and be honest with yourself and just understand why it is that you feel the need for your partner to post you. So I don't necessarily think it's a red flag. But again, I think once you sat down with yourself and answered those questions and you have an answer, then I think then is a good opportunity to sit down with your significant other and express your emotions honestly and say, hey, this situation is really bugging me, but also you're in a relationship, which means there are two people. So when you sit down and talk to your partner, don't just say, I don't like that you're not posting me. Give them a chance to perhaps explain to you why they're not posting you on Instagram. Perhaps they don't like sharing personal things about their life on their social media. Perhaps they don't even use social media, or who knows, right? So I think you always need to listen with an open ear to your partner and understand. And as much as you want them to understand you, you also need to be open to understanding them. And so that's kind of my opinion with that. I don't necessarily think it's a red flag. I think you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing and why you want what you want. So that's my answer. I hope that was not too long-winded or confusing. That was a great question. The next one is, when is the right time to get married? Chat a little bit more on this topic because it's very interesting. But I think a lot of people, especially younger people, are waiting a really long time to get married. I think there is something about, at least my generation and the younger generations, that see getting married as the end point. You date for this many years and you're engaged for this many years, and marriage is the end point. It's not the end point. It's the start of your life with your partner. I think you should know that someone's the one within a few years, in my personal opinion. And I think the issue, and I think this is probably more prevalent for women than it is for men, if you are afraid that getting married or being in a relationship is gonna stop you from pursuing your dreams, whether they be career, education, if you feel like your marriage or relationship is gonna compromise those, then you need to ask yourself why. Because I don't think any sort of relationship, whatever it may be, should hinder your aspirations, your successes, and your choices. And so I think for women is that they're afraid that, if they get married, that they're not going to be able to continue, but I don't think that is the way that it should be. I think you have to feel like it's the right time for you, and I think, you should both know. I think you don't need 10 years to know that someone is the one. Likewise, on another note though, I don't know if marriage is the same way that it used to be. I know so many people and I've heard of so many people who just never get married, and that's totally okay. I think there is so many options now with relationships. You know, you could cohabitate with someone for the rest of your life, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I think it all comes down to making the choice that is going to be best for you. If you feel like marriage is not in the books for you, go for it. If you feel like kids are not in the books for you, go for it. I think, again, it's about what you want, and if you have a partner, then, you know, make decisions as a team and make those decisions in ways that are gonna help both of you grow and reach your goals and aspirations. So that's my kind of answer to that one. Next question is, what did you learn about in your last relationship? Now, truth be told, I learned a lot, like a lot. But there was two things that come to mind. And the first is moving in with someone before you get married. And obviously this is such a personal decision, but this was just from experience. You know, in my last relationship, I didn't know this person until I moved in with them. And I didn't realize the extent of truth in that statement of, you know, you don't know someone until you live with them. That is so true, okay? It took 3 or 4 months for me to see who this person actually was. And it's funny because after my last relationship ended, my initial feeling was, I'm never moving in with someone before I get married, like, not happening. That was such a terrible experience. But after I had some time to think and reflect and calm down from my relationship, I came to the conclusion that if it hadn't been for me moving in with this person, I probably could have spent years with this person, because, you know, only seeing them a few times a week and sleeping over was not the same as living with someone 24/7. I think that really shows someone's true colors when you live with them. And so I personally would say that in order for me to marry someone, I'd have to at the very least live with them. Even if it's for, I don't know, 6 months, that's enough time. I think you really know someone after that. That's something that I learned from my last relationship, is the importance of living with someone. I think is a really great way to actually get to know the person that you're with. But again, such a personal thing. And I'm not saying that your relationship won't work out or that you don't know your partner if you don't move in before getting married. But that's just one of the things that I learned and I will be taking with me in the future. So the second thing that I learned was more about myself and kind of what I wanted in a relationship. And I think after my last relationship, I came out wanting a person that I could be my whole entire self with. I could be, I just wanted someone to love me for me and for everything that I was, everything that I came with, the good, the bad, the mediocre. And with that came, you know, all of my life. I wanted someone that I could share how much I made with. I wanted someone that I could share my goals and aspirations with. I wanted someone that would make me laugh, and I think, you know, those things, someone that I could share kind of everything with, was what I really came out of from my last relationship, because I was really unable to do that in my last relationship. Towards the end, there were so many moments where I was hiding purchases, I was lying about how much I was making, all to prevent arguments and to, you know, not stir the pot. And I came out of that relationship saying, never again. I want to be able to be my honest self with my partner and talk about my concerns and my successes as well. I think as women, I think we don't talk enough about our successes, and we should have partners that support us regardless of what we're doing. So yeah, I think I came out of that relationship wanting someone that I could just be my honest self with and share all of the good and all of the bad with. So I think those are the two things that I really learned about myself. Also, I didn't realize how much I loved family until my last relationship. But yeah, those are a couple things that I learned, and I'm so grateful for my last relationship. I know that it was very unhealthy and toxic, and it wasn't fun. There was a lot of bad moments, but I'm so forever grateful for everything that I learned during that time. So yeah. Next question is, what is your best relationship advice? This question was asked quite a lot, and I think it's such a fantastic question. And now my answer to this would actually be communication, but not in the common sense. I didn't mean to be cheesy about that. And when I mean communication, I don't just mean like talk to your partner. I think there is a certain way of communicating that can really dictate the health of your relationship. And for me, that means being selfless and not making everything about like myself or yourself, you know? And what I mean by this is when you're communicating with your partner, do not make everything about you. You know, I think a great example of this is, you know, if you constantly do something to your partner and all of a sudden one day they say, hey, please don't do that. It does not mean that they have stopped loving you. It does not mean that they don't care about you anymore. It does not mean that they don't like you anymore. It just simply means that that particular action is no longer making them happy. And so I think when we take back all of these, you know, kind of almost egotistical expectations, we can now sit and say, okay, no big deal, I won't do that anymore. And if you're still curious why and you want to understand them, say, hey, is there a reason why you don't like me doing that? But I think being really selfless with your communication is really, really important. I think so many people get offended when their partner tells them something or expresses something to them when it's not about you, it's about them. And in a relationship, I think it's so important to give your partner the ability and the open space to communicate about how they feel. And I mean, you should want your partner to be happy. So if they tell you, hey, I'm not really liking this anymore, can you please stop? I think the reaction should be absolutely. Like, if you don't like that anymore, that's totally okay. And I think that's my biggest thing with communication, is to really, really be selfless and allow your partner to communicate to you without you getting offended, because at the end of the day, it's their emotions that they're expressing to you, and it has nothing to do with you, I think. And so I hope that answer makes sense, but yeah, I think how you communicate is really, really important. And yeah, that would be I think that would be my advice. This is a juicy one, but the question is, what led you to feel that your last relationship was toxic? This is really, really tough, because I think for, you know, relationships that are toxic, they can oftentimes be really hard to even realize that they're toxic relationships, because oftentimes you still love the person, they still love you, and it doesn't mean that everything is bad, but there are aspects of that relationship that are not necessarily healthy. There was one particular moment where it was just like a light bulb moment for me. In this particular case, my ex had put me to choose between him and my family. He was clearly bothered by the amount of time that I spent with my parents, and it was really tough for me, because as much as I loved him, I really loved my family too. And it wasn't until that night that I realized this was no different than, you know, a boyfriend telling you, you can't hang out with certain people because I don't like them, or you need to choose between your friend and me. Your partners should never make you choose between the people that you love and them. And me being a huge family person, family is so important to me, that the moment I realized that this behavior was no different than, you know, that kind of friend analogy, it really put into perspective, and it really made me wonder, you know, what other behaviors were also happening. On top of that, that was kind of my light bulb moment. But after that, I really started to notice that there was a lot of nitpicking, a lot of putting down. And I'm a very confident person. I think I've worked really hard on that. I think my mom raised me in such a way that has made me a very confident person. And that's, I think, fantastic. But when someone loves you and you love them, I think you take their word very seriously. At least I do, you know. And to have this person constantly, you know, nitpicking at me, making fun of me, and just putting me down, you know, I took them very seriously because they were coming from someone that I really cared about. But over time, those words became very hurtful. I would keep replaying them in my head, and over time, they really got to me. And I think that's very, very unhealthy behavior. I think your partner and your family should love you and support you regardless of what it is that you're trying to achieve in life, obviously, you know, give or take. But I think if you're trying to better yourself, your loved ones should always support you and be there for you. And I just felt like that was not happening. If anything, they were just doing the total opposite. You know, it was really tough because I was the type of person that always said, you know, I will never put up with toxic behavior. I will end it right away. Like, that was just the person that I always was. And unfortunately, it took me months to even realize that these things were happening to me because I didn't realize them. And that's, I think, the case that a lot of people find themselves in. Thankfully, I have a really wonderful relationship with my mom and dad, and I was able to sit down with them and express a little bit of what was going on. And I think with, you know, their guidance, I was able to end things and move on, even though it was not easy whatsoever. But I'm really thankful that I had that support there from them and even my friends as well to make that change, because it's really not a fun position to be in, I think. Yeah, so anyways, that's my answer to that question. Next question is, how do you and your partner navigate through hardships? Again, communication. The moment something is maybe not bugging me yet, but it's like, I'm not really liking that, I will bring it up in a very kind manner. Obviously, I'm not upset about this certain thing yet, and so bringing it up with kindness and just in a way that is, you know, hey, I'm not liking this, can we find a solution together? And I think, honestly, having that communication that allows you to prevent problems is really key, because I think once you let things build up, then you're not going to approach your partner by saying, hey, like, you know, what's going on here? Like, why are we doing this a certain way? You're going to come up and say, oh my God, can you please stop doing that? I don't like it. Those tones are very different, and being on the receiving end of those two approaches can really change how you respond back. And so, at least for me, I think navigating hardships is really navigating them before they even start. You know, being aware of what's going on. You know, if I'm not really loving something, bring it up to them. Just bring it up to them. And always give them the opportunity to explain themselves. Don't assume that you know why someone is doing something. Assumption never ends well, okay? Because you are not in their head. You are in your head, not in theirs. So assuming that a person is doing something for one reason is not the greatest thing to do. So that's my answer to that. Be honest before something actually starts to upset you. Okay, next question is, as a Latina, do your parents also prefer you date a Latino, or what is your preference? My parents have always been so supportive, and I think they've always wanted the best for me, and so there has never ever been any discussion on who I should or shouldn't date. It has always been up to me, and that's always been my decision. And yeah, they've just always been supportive. I have no preference. I think it doesn't matter what someone looks like or where they're from or what their religion or culture is. I think if you can build a really healthy and beautiful relationship with someone, and you think that they make you happy and that they're a good addition to your life, then go for it. Yeah, I think that's my take on it. I have no preference, really, for me. I just, I want someone that's gonna make me happy and bring joy and happiness to my life, not the opposite. So no expectations or preferences from anybody. Now, there was quite a few questions on like kind of money related and finance related. What is your opinion on equally sharing rents, utilities, etc.? Your partners, so everything you do should be, to grow as a team. I think I always like viewing my relationships as, we're partners, we're teammates, we're here to cheer each other on, we're here to build each other up. You're there to support them in their dreams and aspirations. I won't use myself as an example because I'm living on my own, and this is something that I would do moving forward, but much like I view my relationship, I think living together is no different. I don't necessarily think you have to split rent half and half. I think as partners, you have to decide what is the best way, to split things up. Perhaps one person takes all the rent, but the other person pays for food and going out and all those things, or perhaps going half and half does work better for you. I think we shouldn't just make a decision based on, what society tells you to do. I think if you can sit down and come up with a plan that's going to work best for the both of you, then that's awesome. But in my personal opinion, I think looking at each other's finances and finding a way to kind of split things off that is going to be the best for each other, then I think that's great. If one of you can take 3/4 of the rent, the other one covers the other quarter, and food and stuff like that. I don't know, that to me has always made sense. And I'm gonna include housework in here because when you live with someone, it's not just about money. There is a whole house that has to be cared for. And in my mind, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be 50-50 because sometimes, you know, I have an off day, then they're gonna have to pick up the slack, and if they're having an off day, then I'll pick up the slack. But I think for the most part, you know, either splitting chores or taking turns on chores, while always being mindful that sometimes people can have a bad day. And so I think that's kind of my approach on things, is find what works for you. You know, don't feel pressured by outsiders who are not in your relationship, because your parents can give you all the advice that they can and have, but they're not in your relationship. So what works for them may not work for you. So I always think sitting down and having, you know, a talk about, hey, what's gonna work for us? What's gonna make you happy? What's gonna make me happy? Let's make it work, okay? And I think having that kind of positive mindset and working as a team, I think is really, really good. So I think that's kind of my outlook on the like living financial situation. Next question is, do you need to share how much you make with your partner? My answer to that is yes. And the reason is, why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you share what you make? I think your teammates, your partners, your goals should be in one way or another lined up. And if there's a reason why you can't share your income with him, then that to me would be a little bit of a red flag. You know, are you afraid that he's gonna get upset? So yeah, in my mind, I think you should share your income. Likewise, I think there is a lot of women who keep a lot of things from their partners, like purchases or certain decisions. That is no different than like not sharing your income. So, you know, I think in many cases, your partner should always support you. And in my case, you know, if a partner is upset about how much I make, then that's probably not the person for me. Likewise, you know, if they're threatened by you, if they see you as competition, then that is like, run away, run to the hills. Like, that's not okay. Your partner should not be threatened by how much you make or your successes or anything along those lines. And if you're telling me that you feel the need to maybe hide something from them, yeah, I think my simple answer to be that, yeah, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't share your income with your partner. Doesn't really define you. It is not a harmful piece of knowledge whatsoever. And if it does become a topic of concern, then maybe there's a little bit more to look into than how much you make, because you're probably working really hard for that. So anyways, do you need to? It's not a need, but in my mind, why wouldn't you? I don't know. Anyways, that was an interesting one. Okay, this is a really interesting question, and I think it's a question that really comes up, especially after breakups for a lot of people. And so the question is, are you at a stage in your life where you feel like you'd be okay staying single forever? Now, I don't know if all of you know, I'm not single, but I remember, you know, when I broke up, I think when a lot of people break up, the instant reaction is, I'm gonna work on myself, I'm going to, like, I don't want a relationship right now. And that's okay, because I think we all need to give time to ourselves to get over our last relationship, and especially if it was an unhealthy one, then I think there's a lot that you need to work through. But not once after my last relationship did I ever think that I'd be okay with being single, because I am not okay with being single. I love having someone to share my life with, share my moments with. I love love. Like, I love love. I think it's so wonderful, and it brings so much joy to your life. And I think if you're with the right person, they can just make your life so wonderful. I never thought to myself, I don't want a partner, I'm not searching for someone, because in being honest with myself, I knew that in the end, I always wanted a partner. I always wanted, you know, a husband. That's something that's just always been me. And I think, you know, nowadays you hear like, oh, hot girl summer, like, I'm not looking for a guy, I don't need a man. And you know what, if that's honestly what you want, then that is the best thing ever. You know what, you go girl, you just rock life all on your own. On the other hand, I think if you're someone who just got out of a relationship and you aren't finding anyone yet, I think it's okay to say, hey, I'm looking for someone I'd like to be in a relationship with. I just haven't found someone. But I think a lot of people have gotten in this kind of, I would say it's a little bit of an unhealthy practice, and it's just saying, I don't need a man, I don't want a man, or a woman, whatever your choice is. I don't need this person in my life, when deep down, maybe it is something that you want. And again, I think being honest with ourselves is so, so important. But I can understand how that can be really difficult if, you know, you're concerned about, because it's definitely easier to say, you know, I'm single, but it's because I don't want someone, as opposed to I'm single, but I can't find anyone. I can understand why, you know, saying I'm single because I don't want anyone is an easier option. I just don't think, I think being honest with ourselves is really, really important. And so I totally forgot what this question even is. Oh, if I'd be okay with staying single forever. Yeah, totally deviated on that one. No, I would not be okay with staying single forever. Absolutely not. I love love. I love being in happy relationships, and that's just the honest truth. Even when I was single, I'd always be like, I'd always be like, oh, when will I find my true love? You know, he was out there. Anyways, next question is, after 3 years of dating, he never wants to commit. How long do I wait? Now, I'm not really sure what this question meant. I'm not sure if they're like dating casually and she's been waiting 3 years to become like exclusive, or if she means like getting married. So I'll answer the first situation. If you have been casually dating for 3 years and he cannot commit exclusively to you, leave. Like, this guy clearly doesn't love you. It's been 3 years. If he can't commit to only seeing you, then he clearly doesn't love you, and you don't deserve that. You deserve better. So if that's the case, he is not the one for you, probably. In the other scenario, if you've been dating for 3 years and you want to get engaged and you want to take that next step and he doesn't, first question is, have you sat down and had a conversation and asked him why? I think 3 years of dating is more than enough time, if you're at a good age, to know that you want to get married to someone. I think if after 3 years you don't know, or there hasn't been any sort of conversation about it, then maybe something's not quite matching up. Because I think when you're sure, you're sure. So I think if you sit down with him and your partner, you know, and I'm gonna say he just for the sake of this example, but you know, I think if you sit down with your partner and say, hey, like, I feel like I'm ready to get married, and his answer is, I don't know, I'm not sure, haven't thought about it, then I think, honestly, you need to ask if he thinks you're the one, because not only is he wasting his time, but he's wasting your time if he's gonna date you for 7 years and then not want to get married to you. So I think you need to have an honest conversation with him. But you know, if he turns to you and says, hey, like, yes, I want to get married to you, if it's clear and out there that he wants to marry you, like 100%, but he just needs like a year to finish school, or perhaps he's you know, you're doing long distance, I think in those cases, it's okay, you know, to have things going on in your life when getting married just may not be the perfect timing. But I think you always have to gauge it, and I think we have to be honest with ourselves. I think we all deserve a partner that loves us wholeheartedly and cares about us and wants the best for us. And I think, you know, dragging on dating someone for 7 years who is unsure, is not the right time, and kind of always neglects and avoids this question, the unfortunate situation is they may not like you all that much. And I know that's really probably tough to hear, but you deserve better than that if that's the case. So that's my answer. Now, there's quite a few questions about dating while being an influencer. And so this question says, has it been challenging to date while being an influencer? Now, on one hand, the actual like dating, going out and finding a person, and you know, maybe one day I'll share this story with you guys, but because it's a funny story. I actually knew this person far before I became an influencer, so that situation was very, very different. But in terms of like actually being a relationship, you know, my last relationship, I kind of started all of this already being in the relationship, so that was that. But coming into a new relationship, already having this as my job was really interesting for me, because my job became a really negative thing in my last relationship. And so coming into my new relationship, I had all of these sore spots from my last relationship. I was constantly, like, I was hyper aware of doing anything in front of them in the fear that they would not like my job or the type of life, because, you know, I think content creating is fantastic, but it's very invasive, okay? It is your whole life. My life is my job. And with that, you know, you have to find a balance, because not everyone in your life is gonna wanna be in your vlogs or be filmed. And so you have to be really, really mindful of that. And that can make it really, really hard to have this as a job. And so I was so hyper aware of doing these things in my new relationship for the fear that they were not gonna like my job. And so that made it really, really difficult, to be honest. It was something that has taken me a long time to kind of get through and get comfortable with. And, you know, I've had many situations where I've needed a lot of reassurance that that was okay. And so yeah, I think that was like a really hard part for me, is just navigating my job and my relationship. So at the beginning it was challenging, but it's good now. Now, I love this question. How do you know if someone is the one? Well, I'm gonna give you my cheesy answer. Honestly, I think you just know. And I think that's a terrible answer. And it's such a terrible answer, I'm sorry guys, but I think it's so true. I think when someone is the one, there's no questions about it. There is no hesitations. There is no hardships. There's no barriers. I think when it's the one, it's the one. It's clear, it's obvious, that's what you want. You are not uncertain. And equally, they feel the exact same way. And yeah, I think that's my answer. I think when you meet someone who is as equally as in love as you are with them, then that's probably the one. And the last question, which I've answered before, but I think some of you missed it. But the last question is, are you in a relationship? And the answer to that is yes, I am in a relationship. I have been for quite some time now. And I'm very happy, I can say that. I do like to keep my relationship pretty private. I don't know, you guys didn't ask any more questions, so I'm just gonna answer the question that you asked. I am in a relationship. Well, that was the last question in this Q&A, and I really, really hope you guys enjoy this. I would also love to know your guys' opinions and thoughts and answers to these questions. You know, obviously, let's be respectful, as always, but I think it's always so interesting to see how everyone perceives relationships, and we all approach relationships so differently, and I think that's really fascinating. So if you have any comments, any opinions that you'd like to share them in the comment box, respectfully please, as I'd love to read through them and have some conversations down there. But yeah, I really, really hope you guys enjoyed this, and maybe we'll do more in the future. Let's see, I'm feeling a lot more like calmer at the end of this. I was really nervous at the start, but I'm feeling good now. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and don't forget to subscribe, as well as do follow me on Instagram. I will leave that up here for you, as I would love to have you guys join the family. But anyways, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! Mwah.